Hello friends, welcome. Friends, you might have noticed that BSNL recently released their Q1 report for the financial year, the current financial year, which is FY26. Now I have downloaded this report, and if you look at the report, this report is of 20 pages. So if I just move my face off, and then you can see that this is 22 pages versus an earlier report which BSNL has released for Q3. I'm not looking at the annual report. I'm looking at the report which was Q3 FY25. So that was of roughly 40 pages, right? So 40 pages versus the number that I showed you, which is 22 pages. Why? Because there are a lot of information which is missing in this report, which the quarterly report, which you can download it from this website. What is the information which is missing? The information that is missing, you can find it in my Excel sheet. This is the information. So what BSNL used to do, they used to give the revenue breakup for the category which is the operating revenues and the other income. So there was a breakup which was given, which I had aggregated for all the earlier quarters. But the June breakup is missing. But that doesn't really, say anything, or that's not the point here. But it would have been better if I had got the breakup for these revenue items, which would have given me a very good indication as to what is going on with their overall network, because they are very focused in 4G services rollout in the country, and therefore I would have seen the performance of BSNL as regards sale of services from cellular, right? But let's do the following. Let's go to the aggregated numbers. The aggregated numbers for FY26 first quarter is listed as below, right? So you will see that the revenue from operation has now gone down from 6,644, which was the 31st March 2025 quarter, to 5,026, right? And the increment, so this is the line of increment, which kind of gives you the increment from revenue from operation, which is a decrease of 1,617 crore. Now revenue from other, which I indicated here, if you look at this sheet which I showed you here, revenue from other is this bucket, revenue from other, right? So there are two independent buckets: revenue from sale, service and operation, and revenue from other. So now revenue from other here, if I go and look at the sheet here, you will find the revenue from other has dropped from 1,180 to 706.60.7 crores, right? Which is the increment changes are here, and you can, this is basically is going in this direction, right? Increasing. So the financial years are the quarters are increasing in this direction. Okay. Now, a license fee, etc. You can basically have a look at it, and there is no problem. Now look at the profit. The profit has dropped from 280 crores point two to 1,049 crores. Earlier in these 2 quarters, BSNL has listed profits. FY25, that is the last quarter, and FY25 the Q3 of FY25, which is the second last quarter. So they had a reported profit of 262.4 and then 280, and then suddenly there is a loss. Now these loss numbers, if you see, they have remained they've been undulating, but BSNL was consistently in loss, but only in the 2 quarters which BSNL was in profit. And this point about BSNL that they are in profit has been blown out of proportion by the government in the media. Every time they used to talk about that BSNL is in profit, after so many years, right? But again, it has gone to loss. Now the question here which we have to answer is whether this is just a stray event, because BSNL now is in profit, and therefore maybe this is just a stray event, and next quarter BSNL will be in profit, and therefore we need to look into the trend of revenues, how the revenues of BSNL is booked, and whether there is a possibility that this is just an exception, because we already have seen 2 quarters of profit, and we'll continue to see profit going forward in this direction as we go to Q2 26 and Q3 26 and Q2 Q4 26, whether that is going to happen or not. Now for that, friends, we need to look into 2 different trends of BSNL. One is that how they book their revenues. What is the revenue trend that BSNL has, which is important to understand, both the revenue from operation and revenue from other, how they are booking that, what kind of trend that we are seeing. One thing you will notice, friends, is that BSNL will always book a very high quarter or high revenue in the last quarter, right? If you see here, in 31st March 2025, they have booked a revenue of 6,644. In 31st March 2024, it is 6,000. So these numbers, which I have marked with violet, you'll see that they are always very high. So you see that even in 31st March 2022, these numbers are always high. So that is one trend that you will notice, that last quarter suddenly it bumps up, the revenue bumps up. And revenue from other has been exceptionally high in the last quarter. So because, and as I've been already telling you that why BSNL has done profit, has gone into profit, because they bumped up revenue from other. And we are going to talk about what are the items which include revenue from other. And you will notice that in any of the past quarter, this number was not very high. You'll always see that this number actually was at the level of some few hundred crores. Sometimes it used to go to 600 crores, sometimes 348 crores. But except in one quarter in FY22, this number went to 1046 crores, right? So after a long period, they had posted a huge revenue from other. And some if you go to the details of other, you'll find that there's a substantial amount of revenue BSNL does not explain from where it is coming. And why did they make profit in FY25 31st Q3 FY25? Because they posted a negative depreciation, which is also very funny. So these two years were exception year to me, and therefore I believe that they will continue to post loss going after year by year unless these revenue from other gets exceptionally bumped up, or they do some jugglery with their depreciation. Now let's look at the breakup. This breakup is pretty important, which we don't have for the June quarter. Now, this breakup on an absolute number will not give you any clarity. You will not be able to understand anything, except for the fact that if you see that excess provision of return back no longer required, 844.24 is a substantial amount which got bumped up in March 2025, which played a very important role in bumping up this number, revenue from other, because it was not there in the earlier quarter. You see, these earlier quarter numbers were quite low, and this is substantially high. So what I've done, friends, I've given a percentage, distribution of all these numbers. If you see here, the total revenue numbers are here, which is both absolute and 100%. So, and for each and every quarter, you can see the distribution of the various line item BSNL used to advertised in their report. In this report, they haven't done it, but it is. So you can pause the video and have a look at it. I can do one thing. I can just bump up the numbers a little bit, and we can go in the past quarter to see what is going on. So if you look at here, you'll find that the other operating income, which I was talking about, both this item, other operating income. So when you say revenue from sale of service, there is a big item called other operating income. So other operating income should be in other income. I do not know why they have other income in other income. So which basically means that if you have main category, this is the main category item, which is saying revenue from services. This should have been services. And this is other income because there could be a lot of interest income, etc. But within this revenue from services, if you have a huge item, which is unexplainable, means it has not been explained, that it casted out, means this is not a consistent number, and sometimes it has been blown up out of proportion, especially in the quarter, in the last quarter. You see, always in the last quarter, you will see that this item has been blown out of proportion. You see, can you see this? So there is definitely some issue here. Then 4G services of BSNL is going to definitely bump up cellular revenues, but cellular revenues were higher in the past quarter. You see, can you see that this number as a percent of total revenue was higher in the past quarter, and this quarter this number has dropped to 18.9%. Now friends, if BSNL is focusing all their energy in 4G services, right, to launch 4G services, let me do one thing. Let me do I'll just go here. Let me pause the video and come back. Yeah, so basically I did a freeze spin so that it can become very easy to understand. So you see here, revenue from cellular was quite a large percentage in the past quarters. Now, suddenly, the revenue from cellular has dropped to a lower level. Now, if you are launching 4G services and you're going to launch 5G services, then it is expected that revenue from cellular should bump up. But how it will bump up if their ARPU is very, very low? And we are going to discuss that as we move forward in this video. Then you will notice that revenue from landline has significantly dropped, as well as broadband services have significantly dropped as a percentage of total revenue. So if it is 1.39% of the total revenue of 7,824 crores with landline, and broadband is just 0.65% and FTTH is 9%, which is dropped significantly from the earlier quarters, it kind of speaks this story, what is going on. And then there is lease from passive infra, and then lease line, this is probably doing well. And then there is other operating income which we don't understand. And then this is another line item which you don't understand. So how will BSNL come into profitability, will become profitability when the key item of focus, which is cellular, is not contributing to revenues. It is just contributing between 18 to 20% revenue. How will BSNL make profit? And the point is that, which is a very important issue that we need to understand, this BSNL's wireless subscribers are dwindling down. You see, now it is at the level of 90.5. Now, this may include M2M subscriber also. And there will be some dummy subscribers. So if you subtract this number, right? Well, let's say M2M you remove. I think M2M BSNL doesn't have. Let's forget about M2M. Let's do a simple math. 90.5 is the total wireless subscriber revenue. Now, if I multiply it by 3, it is going to be for 3 months, right? And then if we multiply it by the ARPU of BSNL 80, okay, and then divided by 10, it should give you the quarterly revenue, which is 2,172 crores. Let's see what the cellular revenues BSNL is doing in this quarter, has done in this quarter. In this quarter, cellular revenue BSNL has done is 1,479 crores. See, 1,479 crores. And what we found out recently, 2,172 crores. It means that BSNL ARPU is not even 80. If I do 70, then it comes out to be 1,900 crores. Still, if you look at these numbers, are nowhere close to 1,900 crores. Now, if I do 65, right? Then it comes to 1,700 crores. Still, its numbers are not close to 1,700 crores quarter by quarter. So what I do, I make it 60, right? It comes out to be 1,600 crores. Still, so are we saying that BSNL has an ARPU of just 50 rupees or 55 rupees? Is that what it is? Because this particular segment should reflect that number, right? And what about these things? Other operating income. So if I go here and how will BSNL bump up other operating income? How will BSNL bump up their lease line income? How will BSNL bump up their landline income, broadband income, FTTH income, right? All these things which actually add up, not very significant, but it has got some numbers. If you look at the distribution, you will find that FTTH was 13.14 and it was quite high, and suddenly it has dropped to 9.01% of the total revenue. So don't you think that we are actually kind of in a big problem as far as BSNL's revenue projections are concerned? And whatever profits that we boasted and thumped our chest on these 2 quarters is just an exception. It will never be able to, they will never be able to sustain those numbers, because this breakup is telling the whole story. You should pause the video and look at this breakup. Let me just take my face away here, and you can see all the categories here of items and look at the breakup. Because wherever there is a focus, when we say that BSNL is focused on 4G services, then BSNL's cellular revenues has to rise. When when minister says that we are going to make another 45,000 crores of investment to bump up, so this is where the focus should be, right? And the other operating income, which BSNL keeps bumping up in every last quarter, that number actually has to be explained how they will sustain this, because this is a substantial number of revenue, and then you will see that there is excess provision returned back no longer. This is actually bumped up in these 2 quarters where the BSNL shown profits. So it looks to me that BSNL is actually in a very big problem. So if you see operating income, it adds up to 84.92, which includes 25.5%. So if you subtract this, it kind of goes to what? It goes to 60%. So 60% of the BSNL revenue, because it is 25, right? So 25 means, yeah, it is 60%, roughly 60%. So 60% is this, 40% is non-operating revenue. So then within this 60%, cellular is just 20%. So imagine that what kind of problem that we are in with BSNL. So friends, that is the whole purpose of doing this video, to just tell that BSNL's focus, which is 4G, 5G going forward, should be able to give them revenue for the company to be profitable. But seems that BSNL is not earning revenue from cellular alone. There are other items which constitute a substantial portion of the revenue. And their ARPU is pretty dismal. It is very, very low, which I showed you from this calculation, BSNL subscribers number. And then you multiply and you arrived at the quarterly revenue, which is right in front of you. So BSNL is ARPU is very, very low. In order for them to drive ARPU to the level of even Vodafone prepaid ARPU maybe at 150 rupees or something, which I showed you in one of my calculations. If you assume that the postpaid is 400, right? BSNL is far, far below. So they have to have a long way to go in order to bump up these numbers. And this is a very, very interesting aggregation. We should focus on this. And therefore, when we say that BSNL is going in the path of profitability, I don't think so. BSNL will continue to make losses because BSNL is not focused in real sense. Because when it is advertised and they say that they are going 4G, 5G, how they are going to increase their landline, broadband, FTTH, lease line, from passive lease income from passive, lease line, then enterprise services. These are not point of focus, not of discussion. And these constitutes a very substantial point of revenue. So that's all, friend, in this video. I hope that you like this video. And I'll come back with a new video and a new topic next time. Thank you very much for listening till the end. Thanks a lot.